want to start by thanking the Hindustan Times, the editor, my friend Sukumanji. Thank you, Amitabh, for collaborating with Hindustan Times. And I want to thank all the other distinguished contributors to not only the discussion today, but to the entire ecosystem of biofuels. I can't name everyone, but I would be really remiss if I didn't recognize these two ladies here, DG of Terry. But let me try and start with some context setting. And that context setting should, I think, briefly try and capture what we attempted earlier, why we are succeeding today, and where we are planning to take this to. Under Amitabh's very energetic and professionally focused Sherpa-ship, is there any such term, Amitabh? A term called Sherpa-ship, but his role as Sherpa of the G20. We are going to open an international, global biofuels alliance. We're going to open that for signature. And I think that is and I believe that will be a landmark. And therefore, I want to start with a little story, a personal anecdote. I'm told that as you get older, you are more liable to tell stories, but this one I think is contextual, you'll forgive me. Many years ago, I had the privilege of being posted as India's ambassador to Brazil. That in and of itself, I think, was an accident because we had two foreign service officers at that level available. One was Japanese speaking and one was Portuguese speaking. And we had a minister who maybe had a sense of innovation. He posted the Japanese speaking officer, which was me, to Brazil, and the Portuguese speaking officer to Tokyo as ambassador. Well, some people smarted and said, somebody's trying to fix someone. I took it with with a healthy spirit. I said that this is an opportunity for me to learn. And one of the first lessons I learned was the biofuels lesson. This was 2006, January. At that time, the government in Delhi was very keen to introduce 5% of biofuel blending. By 5%, they actually meant ethanol. In a few of our states and union territories. So the amount of ethanol that would have been required to complete that 5% blending was not very much. So here I went to Japan, and my first visit to Sao Paulo, which is the commercial capital of Brazil, I called on the then head of an organization which, Unica. That is the cooperative society which deals with the production of ethanol. And the chairman of that spent a lot of time educating a newly arrived ambassador who knew next to nothing on biofuels but had a great yearning to learn. And he said if Brazil was to be joined by India, the United States was already in the world of biofuels. They make ethanol from maize. If India were to join, there would be the possibility, in fact, to produce a producers and a consumers and producers cooperative organization which could have beginnings of the kind that OPEC had when you went into the entire fossil fuel industry. I want to fast forward. We reached 2014. With the best will in the world, we could only produce 1.4% of biofuel blending. Only 1.4%. Amitabh has already very graciously provided many statistics. I'll just summarize those. The government which assumed office in Delhi in May 2014, led by the Honorable Prime Minister, very soon set a target of 10% blending by 2022, November, and a 20% blending by 2030. What happened is we were able to achieve the 10% blending 5 months before schedule in 2022, and we brought forward the target of 2030 to 2025, and I'm very happy to tell you that we have already got 1,350 petrol bunks in the country which are selling E20 fuel already, and by 2025, as Amitabh said, we will complete the 20% availability of biofuels all over the country, and it's moving very fast. Why is this of importance? Now, even if I were not the Petroleum and Natural Gas Minister, I would still say it's important, because if you look at the figures, some of the statistics are mind-boggling. Why is energy important? I think we're all very clear. If an economy is growing, your energy consumption will increase. If your energy consumption is growing, conversely, it is very clear that you are doing well as a country. Global energy growth, I think today is at around 1% per year. Ours is 3 times that. Roughly about 100 million barrels of crude oil. Excuse me. 100 million barrels of petrol, crude oil gets consumed in a year. It's a very price-sensitive commodity. 2 months ago, OPEC cut production by 1 million barrels a day. Last month, they cut it by 1.6 million barrels a day. This kind of production cut, if you argue with them, they say, no, we don't determine the price, we only determine the amount of crude oil to be released. But if you are a student of the market, you know what one leads to the other, but somehow the prices have remained controlled. I'll come to that separately. India consumes roughly 5 million barrels a day. But whilst world consumption may be static or coming down, including in big economies, our consumption is going up by the day. This 5 million barrels a day consumption will become 6 million, become 6.5 million, and so on. Now, let me fast forward to where biofuels come in. And I have a very interesting statistic here, which says that the oil marketing companies have paid the distillers more than 82,000 crores in the last 8 years, towards ethanol supplies, enabling timely payment to our farmers, which is about 48,000 crores. So, with 10% blending, we already save, I think, 42,000 crores a year. If you save 42,000 crores a year on imports, that helps in the payment of the 42,000 crores to the farmers. Now, if you take that to 20% blending, now I can't anticipate what the price will be internationally, but it stands to reason both the payments to the farmers will increase. The submission I'm making to you, ladies and gentlemen, is that in India, the biofuel story is also a story to the support to our agriculture sector. I think Amitabh very nicely ran you through this different generations of biofuels. The first generation was clear. You went to sugar, first molasses, then sugar cane, and so, sugar, etc. A few months ago, I had the privilege of participating in a biofuels plant, a 2G plant in Panipat, which the Honorable Prime Minister inaugurated virtually. And that one produces ethanol from agricultural waste, what we call parali. Those of you like me who live in Delhi and get choked every winter, the idea is to take that off the thing and produce ethanol out of it. Now you have, I believe, I shouldn't say this, but you will have an important visitor. I can't go into the details. We're looking at 3G plants. It'll be the first 3G plants in the world. I now want to fast forward what are we planning to do now? First of all, let me say that India will account, and that is the importance in the context setting, India will account for 25% of the global demand growth until 2040, which means whatever growth, whatever demand will be generated additionally from now to 2040, 25% of that will come from India. Now, forget for a moment what figures are. Today, every day, 6 crore Indian citizens go to the petrol pump to fill up. 6 crore. Now, that's why Amitabh's emphasis on biofuels, green hydrogen, and I'll come to that in a minute. But today, we are very, it's with great humility I say this, but I think this biofuels, because of the Global Biofuels Alliance, this is an idea whose time has finally come. Because today, when Brazil, United States, and India sign up to the Biofuels Alliance, that would constitute, if figures that have been provided are right, 85% of the global production of ethanol. USA produces 55%, Brazil produces 27%, India today produces only 3%, but India is the fastest and maximum potential story. Because when we go to 20%, it will be this thing. It goes up massively. But now I want to come to another point. Why did we start talking about 20%? If I may be permitted to conjecture, hindsight, I think whenever you set targets, you want to be careful. Actually, a 10% target appeared very ambitious when you couldn't do 2%, as Amitabh was saying. So 10% was, but as you progress towards 10%, then suddenly the 20% target thing. So when the 20% target was 2030 and you brought it to 2025, it gives you the confidence. So I'm going to make a confession in a public forum like this, with many of you recording this, that I think we are slowly but surely losing our inhibition and some mental block that we might have on that 20% blending thing. We, I think, with the benefit of hindsight, set that 20% because the automobile manufacturers told us that the same car engine, automobile engine, will easily take blending up to 20%. They were right. Today, 20% blended fuel is being sold in 1,350 grams, and it's working. We're also looking at technologies to boost that. But I'm coming to another point. Recently, I had the privilege of welcoming a flight of one of the airlines which was flying from Pune to Delhi using 1% blended sustainable aviation fuel. Now, I was talking to Gadkari ji yesterday in a program, interactive session, and we were wondering, if you make 1% blended SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, mandatory as part of policy, you will require what? 14 crore liters of additional ethanol. Please imagine how much of a boost that gives to our agricultural sector. And I think we are in the process of moving there. Why did we stop at 20%? As I said, the automobile manufacturers told us that nahi 20% se upar. But now I find the same manufacturers who were selling flexi-fuel cars to Brazil, where I spent 2.5 years, are now sending you cars which are E85 or E100. In other words, that inhibition which came from the constraint in the automobile engine, that seems to no longer be a constraint, and today you can enhance your biofuel production. And I think that is what is likely to happen, because the policy system now, because of the peculiar or specific challenges we face, points in the direction of that being done. What will happen when we open up the Biofuels Alliance for signature? As I mentioned, these three original signatories, USA, Brazil and India, already account for 85% of global ethanol production. What will the alliance attempt to do? And that, I think, is something that we need to start focusing on. We have received strong support from several countries which are willing to join the alliance. But more than that, I think apart from the member countries, the partner organizations and industries will have an opportunity to join the Global Biofuels Alliance. And I think what it will do is, one, facilitate cooperation with the sharing of best practices. Number two, raise awareness at all levels on the benefit of sustainable biofuels. Number three, facilitate global biofuels trade. Number four, development of concrete policy, lesson sharing. And five, provision of technical support for national biofuels programs worldwide, which also encompasses the setting of standards. And I was very clear from the time that we initially conceptualized the Global Biofuels Alliance that we should not have an entry fee. We should not make it difficult. If you have an interest in biofuels, if you are a producer or even if you are a marginal producer, but you may end up tomorrow wanting to consume it. And biofuels, unlike green hydrogen, and I'm glad Amitabh touched on green hydrogen, I'll come to that in a minute. You know, it is entirely possible that biofuels can be produced in Brazil and imported in the United States. I know I'm being a little naughty in this, but what they did was they feared that Brazilian biofuels will come in. So my American friend sitting here, what he did was they imposed a 54 cents a barrel import duty on biofuels so that the Brazilian cost advantage and the freight would make, but this is natural. But if you have an alliance where you talk, there are going to be countries in the world which have been entirely dependent on fossil fuels and which have had to suffer the toxicity which accompanies that dependence, may well say that we'll move to biofuels, and biofuels may become more not only viable, but in terms of the greenery, in terms of the sustainable aspects, biofuels would be far better for our survival than any fossil fuel. So I think these 5 or 6 objectives that I've spelled out in terms of what the Biofuels Alliance could achieve are part of it. Now, I want to fast forward a little to green hydrogen. For any country which has the size, developmental challenges, and potential for energy, like India, clearly the trilemma that we face, one is availability of fuels, especially in the past, affordability, and the third is sustainability. So I think looking forward from here, we are very clear in our minds, I think at the policy level, that we will have to ensure that energy is available to every consumer. What it means is you have to make the transition. So even during the height of the crisis, we did not allow any dilution or undermining of our sustainability commitments. In fact, our net zero commitment, or 2070, the companies have got 2040, 2035 commitment. But as we go along and get the confidence, I think green hydrogen will be the fuel of the future, wave. Biofuels, I see way beyond 20% coming, and the International Biofuels Alliance will provide that framework for international cooperation. But when I was in the US last, the Energy Secretary and I spoke about a green hydrogen corridor. We are cooperating on green hydrogen with many countries. And if you look at the kind of work which is being done, Amitabh mentioned our OMCs, but let me first go to where the government came in. I think the Prime Minister announced, if I'm not mistaken, from the ramparts of the Red Fort in 15th August 2021, that we would take up green hydrogen in mission mode. For a long time, my cynical friends, including in the press, and said, "Kuch nahi ho raha tha." And I think 2 developments point towards the seriousness of resolve in the government. One is the decision to provide 19,700 crores for entrepreneurs in the area under PLI for electrolyzers. Now, what happens is very clear. What is green hydrogen? What you require is water, green energy, and an electrolyzer. Having already demonstrated that India can bring down the cost per unit from 25 cents to 3 cents, we've demonstrated the cost. It should be quite easy for us after that to produce green hydrogen in a very unique way. Green hydrogen, the gas does not lend itself to transportation. I find myself in disagreement with a lot of it. If you think you can make green hydrogen in some desert and then transport, no, you can probably produce green ammonia and sell it in liquid form and export it, as we are doing to Germany, or we are going to export to Singapore. I signed an MOU with my counterpart. But green hydrogen is best produced in a place where there is domestic, local demand, where you can produce it and you can consume it. And India is an ideal location for green hydrogen. So I want to conclude by saying the Biofuels Alliance will, I think, take us at a level of scaled-up international cooperation, and it will be due for signature. Therefore, I'm immensely grateful to my friend, the editor of Hindustan Times, because the fact that we are opening a green hydrogen, global biofuels alliance for signature as part of our G20 needs to be projected. Equally, that this is one part of the evolving ecosystem with green hydrogen, etc. And I'm very confident that, if you import energy worth several $100 billion a year, just imagine the difference it would make. Because if you look at the import bill where energy comes in, if you can reduce that import bill, equally we are exporting energy now, but that's a different factor. I mean, I think our companies have become very resilient. And we are today in the situation where us becoming a major green hydrogen hub is not just in the realm of speculation. I see us making small but significant strides in order to achieve that. So thank you very much for giving me a patient hearing. I can't think of any better group of people for a discussion of this kind, because you are the people who will put the developments that are taking place today in your work, whether you're from industry or whether you're students or whether it's TERI and the think tanks here or in other parts of the country, because this is, I think, the wave of the future. I mean, the biofuels and coming not just, I'm very happy that the feed in our case, because when you had a discussion on biofuels, you get stuck intellectually on, "Arey bhai, ye to food security ko undermine karegi." But ours is a bit of a different case. Here you are diversifying the stock, broken grain, agricultural waste, gases, etc. And as Amitabh said, it can't just be from the electricity part, but your steel sector, your fertilizer, cement, and our refineries will all contribute to making not only biofuels successful, but also green hydrogen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Puri and Mr. Kant, for really setting the stage for our panel discussion, which is going to follow any moment now.